Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Tavern. We are covering episode 2 of season 1 of the show Evil, and the episode is titled 177 Minutes. Super quick recap. Uh, Girl passes. She comes back after 177 minutes. That's 3 hours, which is weird. The church has sent our trio to investigate to see if it's a miracle, and creepiness ensues. So, one, we get a recording of the girl actually passing at the ER, and there's a weird glitch on the screen. Upon further investigation, Ben discovers that there are 6 frames in which a weird white apparition is floating and flitting through the ER room. And on the 6th frame, in the bottom left corner, there's a face. We find out that face belongs to a woman who passed on the same table an hour prior. Now, in the morgue, the young lady is laid out, and her family comes to pay their last respects along with the priest. The priest holds the young woman's hand, whispers something in the ear, and the family walks out. There are many tears. It's a heartfelt moment. The coroner begins his autopsy, starts slicing into the young woman's face. I don't know why they do that, but I'm not a coroner. She wakes up and starts screaming and bleeding everywhere. So that's the premise. Was it a miracle? Did she come back from, after visiting the afterlife? Who knows? We do, because we watched the damn episode. And so this is what starts the premise of this episode. Although the beginning of the episode was David praying and jogging, and Leland showing up and whispering sweet nothings into his ear that only Leland can do because he's an evil bastard. There's something there. We find out later that as he jogs, David comes to this one spot in his neighborhood where there seems to be a bar inside some brownstones, which is weird to me because the neighbors would complain, but I'm not getting into that. And he turns around and runs back. This happens a couple of times. At the end of the show, or the end of the episode, we find out that he actually goes into this bar and purchases some illegal substances. And I'll tell you what happens with that stuff here in a second. Meanwhile, Kristen is dealing with several things. One, the DA's office wants her back, and she's like, I don't know. She goes, we'll give you a 2-year contract. She's like, I'm not sure. She goes to David, tells David, hey, the DA's office wants me back. It's a 2-year gig. It's money for my family. He goes, give me 24 hours, or give me some time, because she's got to let him know the next day. He goes to the archdiocese. They're like, really? And he's like, yeah, we really need her. Can you get us some money? He goes, I'll get you the money. So Kristen is still on board. But the DA's office replaces her, and replaces her with, you guessed it, Dr. Leland Townsend, our Forsaken, our evil bastard. He takes over her spot, and the DA's office says, hey, you need to work with him to catch him up on your last 2 cases that you were working on. Which she's like, no, fuck you. I don't want to do it. We also find out that her youngest daughter has a heart condition that gives her a 50-50 chance of survival of doing anything. Walking, talking, running, playing, sitting, anything can cause this young child's heart to stop working. And that they're going to do some procedure to find out if it's getting better or worse. I'm trying to think. We find out that, yes, the hubby is still away, because Leland brings that up, and he keeps bringing up Dave Acosta, because there is that sexual tension. Although the show seems to have tampered it down for episode 2 and put them on a more professional basis. They're more used to being around each other, so it's not as awkward as in episode 1. We also find out that her youngest daughter, the one with the heart condition, is also seeing George, and it's time. I think it's time we meet George. There he is. Let me get him closer. Whoop. That's George, the demon that keeps visiting Kristen in her night terrors, and now apparently he is visiting her young daughter in her night terrors as well. So what we find out also is that Christine Lottie, who plays Kristen's mom, has been letting him watch horror flicks and horror shows while she's babysitting Kristen's children. And Kristen decides, okay, well, maybe it's just a subconscious thing, and pulls her aside and says, listen, the demon that you saw in your nightmare, did it look like the one on the show? He was holding a knife too. Just know that, again, we keep things in memory that we see, and maybe that's what you were dreaming, so it's not a big deal, it's fake. And so she says, oh, can we sleep one night together, because I'm kind of still scared. She goes, sure. And of course, George shows up and messes with her some more. Not the daughter, but Kristen. He does this several times to the show. There's a knock knock thing, which I have to say, if you are working late at night in your garage that you've turned into your office and you have a door, put a freaking peephole in that bitch, or a window or something, because when somebody knocks and you look outside and there's nobody there, and so you close and lock the door, and then they bang, 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 bang again, and you have to go open that door to see if there's anybody there. That's too much speculation. No, buy a goddamn window for that door. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Me, I'd tear the door off. I would work with an open door. That's just how I would do it, because there's no way in hell George is knocking on my fucking door again. So while that's happening, we also find out that, or she finds out from the Monsignor or whoever the priest guy is that David works for, that David has visions, something that he had not told her previously. And it's something that Leland says to her when he catches up to her outside the courthouse to mess with her, and says, why don't you ask David, your little lover boy, about the second time he saw God, which is weird. So she tells David, hey, Brandon to Leland, he's told me to ask you this, and it kind of spooks David. So much so, actually, that he goes and buys the drugs. While this is going on, we have Ben, who's trying to decipher the apparition in the video. He can't. We also discover that he is no longer a practicing Muslim, because his sister comes in and says, hey, Dad wants to know if you're coming to prayers. And he just looks at her and she goes, I know, it was worth a shot. So here's the deal. Okay. One, George is here to stay, apparently. He's not going. I thought it was from just a thing from episode 1 and then the possession. No, he's staying. 2, we find out that the girl, there was a medical explanation for her coming back to life. So there's that. It was not a miracle. 3, we find out that the apparition is actually a thing. Ben can't figure it out. And when Dave tells the priest, hey, this is what happened with the hospital, it's not a miracle, this is what happened. But we can't explain this. The priest brushes the apparition away. He's like, that's not a thing. We have another case for you. Also, part of the solving was that the hospital, David confronts the hospital administrator and says, hey, by the way, just so you know, your ER staff spends 55 minutes on a white patient trying to resuscitate them, and only 20 something minutes on anyone else of any other race. So you have a problem here. She came back to life because, 3 hours later, because you didn't spend enough time trying to resuscitate her. She would have come back to life if you had. So there's that whole thing, which I don't think continues into the grander scheme of the show, but it was just an interesting observation that they had. I also went back and did some studying on that whole you can't read in your dreams. That's a goddamn thing. That's a real thing. Apparently your dreams are left-brained, and writing and whatnot are the other way around. Anyways, one side of your brain controls one thing, the other one controls writing, and only very special people can actually read in their dreams. So, yeah, that's it. That's what I got. I can't wait for episode 3. Really good show. Go watch it. Join us on our Discord. We're talking about it there. And if you have any questions or any comments, please leave them down below or on the side or however you do your TikTok. Have a great day. We'll see you next time.